I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me.
Welcome, everyone, to District Divided, a DC sports podcast, more specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. I am Amit. That is my co-host, K-Dot. Before we begin this recap episode on the Los Angeles Rams defeating our Washington Commanders 28-20, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do, and K-Dot,
share this shit.
Please share this shit. Once again, we need to be better about advertising this and putting this out to the people, but we also rely on you to do it as well. So we greatly appreciate it. And without further ado, let's get into it. So, K-Dot, it was a 28-20 loss on the road to the Los Angeles Rams. They moved to now 7-7 on the season. They're in the thick of the wild card race in their season. And for us, we dropped to 4-10. And it wasn't exactly a very fun game for us, but it was closer than we thought it was going to be score-wise anyway. What did you make of the game?
It was boring as shit. I almost fell asleep. We're officially eliminated from playoff contention, just to make sure everybody was not under the...
Ron, I believe, is aware.
Okay, cool. Officially eliminated. Yeah, man, this was it kind of played out along the lines of what we thought it was going to play out. I actually thought LA had a lot of, I mean, you look at like the turnovers and stuff, LA shot themselves in the foot quite a bit, which is usually what happens in games that are fairly close for us or games that feel close. But the thing is that it wasn't really a close game at all until they made the quarterback switch there at the end. And you had the 2 touchdowns. It was almost Mark Brunell to Santana Moss, like, right? Just out of fucking nowhere. It's like, it's an angle of like I know you didn't have Brian Robinson in this game, and up until certain points they were trying to get everybody involved. It just looks sloppy. And yeah, you just wait for the Rams to fuck themselves over. Once again, we're not really dictating anything. Yeah, there are a couple times you can look at certain plays and like, yeah, the turnovers, they force those, right? But then Kyron Williams on like that fumble, he's barely holding on to fucking football because he's whirling. So but you take advantage of what you can. So like, if there's anything, I'm looking at some like the linebackers like Cody Barton and everything. I'm like, all right, you guys had some moments.
I would say this though, K-Dot. I thought Khaleke Hudson was very good today.
I thought Khaleke Hudson did enough to show out in the sense of like when watching TV, you saw him and was like, oh, okay, yeah, Khaleke, good job, man. But I'd have to really look at like the all 22 to really do any sort of breakdown X's and O's wise, because it
sure.
More than anything, it just more felt like the Rams would fuck up. Because even Sean McVay, I rarely see Sean McVay look that animated and angry at certain times there on the sideline, where it was like, Jesus Christ, guys, the fuck are you guys doing? Like, he was annoyed. And that was the thing, is like LA just seemed as though through most of the game, they were kind of just cruising throughout it. I mean, there were certain things we always knew. We knew Cooper Kupp is a beast, especially if they start feeding him. We know Puka Nacua is a beast when they start to feed him. Even if he had like a terrible drop at one point and everything, once again, just them shooting themselves in the foot. Deron Payne had a couple good moments in this game. But like I look at that, I'm like, all right, a couple good moments doesn't really translate to anything when the score for most of the game was like a double-digit fucking lead, and
right.
Who gives a shit? But the Jacoby Brissett thing, I think, is the only thing that has me really scratching my head and like really contemplating on this game. I feel like that's going to be the biggest takeaway from this game.
Okay, perfect. So why don't we segue into that? Because again, we're 4-10. Our season's over. We're one step closer to the offseason, which is where fans honestly want to be at this point, so that we can begin to have the change we want to see at the general manager position, at the head coach position, and, go from there. But you did want to make that point about Jacoby Brissett. And so let me just read the stat lines for the 2 QBs. Sam Howell started the game, 11-26, 102 yards, touchdown, and interception, rating of 50.5. He was Benched in that it wasn't necessarily for poor play. It was a lot of, at least Rivera said after, this guy's taken a lot of hits over the course of the season. We're looking to protect him. He's still our starter. And he had to say that because Jacoby Brissett went 8 of 10 in relief for 124 yards, 2 touchdowns, a rating of 157.9. And something that doesn't show up on Jacoby's stats in particular is Terry McLaurin became alive. And we love seeing Terry McLaurin get going like that. 6 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. Most of that with Jacoby Brissett on those 2 drives. So speak to Jacoby Brissett and what you think it meant.
So that's where I'm like, I'm really excited to look at the all-22 from this game. But before we get to that point, just on vibes alone and like what you can infer or what I'm inferring from what happened, Brissett looked fucking awesome. And the thing is, like, I'm looking at, all right, well, what looked awesome? And I see Terry, the bomb there that he caught behind the fucking defender's hands was not like, okay, I look at that and I say, all right, Terry's not wide open in that. Jacoby made the decision that I trust Terry McLaurin. I'm going to throw it up and I'm going to give him an opportunity to do it, right? So, like, okay, so what does that mean? Sam Howell, we've all known throughout this season, has the ability at times to have an absolute NFL-ready pro arm. He makes throws repeatedly throughout the season. You're like, holy shit, we might have a guy, right? But then you also look at Jacoby Brissett in this game, like, you look at the velocity that comes off the ball, you're just like, oh, we're just not used to good quarterback play. It's like the idea that, like, anyone worth a damn that has any sort of NFL talent will look good to some degree here. Compared to what we usually typically see. But then you also look, all right, Sam Howell throughout that game, there were moments where he had no time to fucking throw. Yes, there were moments in the game where Sam Howell was holding on the ball too long like he has done throughout this season, but he had no time before he had to fucking scramble out and do something, right? Jacoby looked a lot more poised. So that's me. I need to know what the pass rush was looking like for that.
Okay.
Are they blitzing? Are they not blitzing? Like, what's the deal there? Why does that look different? Is Jacoby just more poised in the pocket than Sam Howell? Is he got less happy feet? I don't know until I look at all that.
So what I would just like to, at least from the context standpoint, Jacoby did come in and play really, really well. I would also like to note it was the 4th quarter. It was 28-7.
Right.
There was a sense of the game is already over. And to Jacoby's credit, he made it a game, right? And there was an opportunity to get the ball back potentially and have that game, as it turns out, game tying drive, because we'll talk about Cameron Cheeseman in a moment. Like, that botched snap. Anyway, but Jacoby played well. Jacoby did play very well. I just wanted to add that context to the conversation as well.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. When I say about like watching the all-22 is when you get that far down in the game, sometimes the defense will go to a prevent sort of standpoint. And with that, it allows more passing lanes. Certain things got to open up. Things look a little easy when it comes to the pass rush, having time to make that decision to throw the football. I just don't know until I rewatch. We just got done with that game. It was a late game. We're doing the podcast.
Understood. Yeah, that's exactly right.
But the other part of it is, if I look at like the offense getting bogged down there at the goal line at the end, where it was like play call after play call, you even hear
7 plays down there. Yeah,
you hear the announcers kind of like, "Though this is not going the way that I think Washington thought it would go." Like and then that leads me to, okay, if it's not the play calling, so it's not necessarily Eric Bieniemy, or you got, hang on, let's take a step back. All right, so there's an element of when Jacoby comes in, the game plan itself doesn't change, right? It's the same Eric Bieniemy offense that's being run. It just looks so much better with Jacoby. And the thing to me is that what it seems as though is that Jacoby's relying on natural instinct and maybe just being a veteran in the sense of Terry McLaurin's a dude, and I need to force the rock to the dude, right? I think there's a lot of lines of what Taylor Heineke was doing last year. When you see Terry McLaurin having these big games or getting into it, it's not that Taylor Heineke's great at following a game plan or a scheme. It's there's a star, he's talented, give him the fucking ball, right? So if I'm looking at the Sam Howell aspect of this, as far as like, why isn't Terry having these moments with him? There I go and I blame Eric Bieniemy. And the reason I would blame Eric Bieniemy is there either needs to be a conversation that he has with Sam Howell that says, sometimes you got to take that shot. Now, maybe Sam Howell's a great pupil in the sense of he's staying within the confines of the offense and what Eric is talking about. And like, you don't need to take unnecessary shots. Don't do this. Don't do that. But if that's what Eric Bieniemy's teaching Sam Howell, he needs to change what he's teaching Sam Howell and give Terry McLaurin some fucking opportunities. He came alive. Like, when have you seen him look like that this season?
Oh,
He came alive.
this season, not at all, to actually answer that rhetorical question, because even in this game, there was one moment I remember Sam trying to throw it down the sideline. It was short. It should have been picked. And Terry just sort of walked off the field. It was just like, all right, well, that's another drive. So there is that disinterest that we've talked about, that you've highlighted in particular. And then Jacoby comes in. And yeah, all of a sudden we see Terry McLaurin light up, score that touchdown on a jump ball. Very much a Taylor Heineke type throw where it's just give your playmaker a shot at it.
Right.
And he's a great jump ball receiver, Terry McLaurin is. And then he's down at the 1 yard line on the next one. He thought he had scored initially. And I think we all did when we saw it live. And then once they slowed it down, I was like, okay, fine. He's down at the 1. I will say this, that I do think that there is a slight chance the offense was a little different when Jacoby comes in, because I think my assumption is that Jacoby Brissett would have a certain set of plays that he likes. And there's probably that conversation with Eric where he goes, I like this. And Eric goes, okay, you're about to go in the game. Let's get it to Terry because that's going to probably be best for you. Let's go ahead and get it to our number 1 option. That's going to be best. Right? That is sort of the thought I'm having.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely, you can.
Why isn't that the best fucking philosophy every week?
I would see, and that's a difficult question for me to answer, because I would like to think that is the case.
It is.
But I think what ends up happening is you fall in a bit of a rhythm and it could be a dead rhythm where it's just like, this is what we do. And that is that. And so with Sam, first play, we're going to get it to Terry. Then we're going to try and get it to Jahan. Then we're going to hand it off. Then we're going to, you know, that first 15 script, right?
Yeah.
That's talked about all the time. I think sometimes he gets a little too in the bag and is trying to be too creative. But in this situation, you're down 3 scores in the 4th quarter. It's fuck it. Terry's down there somewhere. So just throw it there. I'm thinking there's a difference there.
But you be creative all you fucking want to be. Like, there are tons of creative offensive minds in the league, right? Kyle Shanahan, creative as shit.
We just went against one today.
Yes, Sean McVay. Last game, Miami Dolphins, and fucking what do they do? Get creative to get your fucking stars the goddamn ball.
This is part of the criticism with Eric Bieniemy, right? Is that we're not getting the ball enough to Terry. Now, what I would like to see is Sam see Jacoby just throw it to Terry, and the hope is like, hey, do that. Just do it. I'd love to see that.
Pull the curtain back a second. I was 1 leg away from a 6-leg parlay on this stupid fucking game that would have netted me, what is it, plus 5,500.
Okay.
I need a Sam Howell rushing touchdown. That's what I need. So when they pulled him out of the game, I was fucking irate. I was, you motherfuckers, I had one thing to look forward to and you took it away from me. But that being said, I immediately got so fucking happy seeing Jacoby throw the fucking rock to Terry and Terry looking happy that I forgot about it for a moment, right? Mm-hmm. But then on the second, what I thought was touchdown but wasn't a touchdown, I got fucking angry again. This team doesn't know its fucking players. This team doesn't know how to get the right guys fucking involved at the right goddamn time. They just don't know. They don't have any fucking idea. And look, I swore Ron Rivera was going to throw fucking Sam Howell under the bus in the press conference tonight. I would have put money on that he was going to throw him or leave it completely up in the air or undecided or not sure what it is he was going to fucking do. And I give him credit. He said it immediately. Sam Howell's the starter, this, that, and the other. Cool. Great. Probably the wise choice, right? But what I will say about this is, as much as I like Sam Howell, I am so fucking out on Eric Bieniemy. I am so out on Eric Bieniemy. I don't think there's anything he can do to win me back. Period. There's nothing he can do to win me back. I am out on Jacoby Brissett, and I'm about to be out on Sam Howell. Like, I'm out on fucking everybody. I'm over it. There is not a snowball chance in hell if you had if the new GM and the new coach comes in, and if there's a quarterback that they even have a smidgen of liking, draft him, sign him, do anything. Because there's nothing on this offense to me that looks as though it's cohesive or works at all. Other than today, you know the only thing that it did help me do? is now Terry McLaurin's back on the don't you dare get rid of him list.
Right.
Because the motherfucker can still ball. He just hasn't been getting the opportunities to do so.
Yeah, I think the offense is most fun when Terry McLaurin is having a good time. That is when we're all having a good time.
Even
is
the
when Terry's
defense
making
looked
plays.
like they start getting that
Yes.
3 and out, right?
Yep.
The defense start like, oh shit.
That's the point of complementary football that you and I keep bringing up over and over again. So early on, when you see it was 13-0 at halftime, I honestly thought the defense did fine. It was a bend, don't break type style. It was frustrating to see. Stafford was completing a whole bunch of balls. Don't get me wrong. And they did shoot themselves in the foot as well. But to their credit, they did get 2 turnovers, whether it was self-inflicted or not by LA. It happened. And 13-0, they needed help from the offense that they just did not get at all. So it was hard for this offense to move the ball for 3+ quarters. We finally got the touchdown to Curtis Samuel in the corner. Great. But it took so long that eventually the defense was held out to dry. They had the breakdown, the massive breakdown on the Cooper Kupp touchdown. This is the complementary stuff we talk about. If the offense helps the defense can get fired up like we're talking about with the Terry McLaurin jump ball touchdown. You get the 3 and out. Then we score again. It takes a little bit longer because down at the 1 and then a bunch of plays. But that's what we're talking about here. Both matter. Both matter. Any final thoughts before we move on to the comment mailbag?
I think the only question we all need to be asking ourselves is why can't we see what we saw today with Terry? Or not even what we saw today. What we saw in the fourth quarter today with Terry, week in and week out. And until someone has an answer to that fucking question, it makes sense. And a way to rectify that, I don't want you here.
I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. And I think you're speaking for a lot of the fan base here that's increasingly out on every member of the coaching staff and some of these players as well.
Did you see the Sam Howell on RG3 show?
No.
Good interview. A little long, a little boring. But Sam talked about one thing above all else that it was kind of a takeaway, which is that he felt as though he needed to be more familiar with at least one of the guys, the way that Mahomes is comfortable with Kelsey. And to me, you've played almost entire season, and there's not one person I can look to and says that that's your guy. And
that is a not great quote. I wouldn't have necessarily said that if I were Sam. I'd be like, yeah, Terry's my guy.
I think he was being honest.
We just no, I know he was.
He's not.
This is a Ron situation to be like, just don't say that. Anyway, we're gonna go over to the comment mailbag. We have 2 comments, both from the Hawk TV. Appreciate you. First one. What's up, gents? Hope all is well. No matter the platform, I don't hear enough folks talk about winning. Now, just as a quick aside and reminder, this is about the Caps and Wizards moving to Virginia potentially. I don't hear enough folks talk about winning. Yes, the Caps broke through and good for them, yet they haven't done it since. And don't get me started on the Wizards. The last time they won was in Baltimore, I believe. Nowadays, you go to a basketball or football team game to cheer for the road teams. That is comment number 1. Comment number 2, and we'll react to all of it at once. Winning cures all, and the Big 4 franchises have not done a good job at it. Instead, it's about the money first, and winning is supplemented. Appreciate those 2 comments there, Hawk TV. Hit out. What do you make of those?
You were the first one in the duo of us to mention winning, but it was in the context of Ted Leonsis being a piece of shit owner. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And the idea more, the one thing I would, because I talked at length last fucking episode, but sometimes it's hard for me to get succinct with some things. The one thing we don't talk about at all that we do need to talk about, you're right, Hawk, is traveling to Virginia or Landover or anything is a much, much easier sell and a much easier pill to fucking swallow when you have a winning product. It's one thing to know that I have to sit in traffic to go watch somebody fucking lose. There's another thing when I know I'm going to have the time of my fucking life watching a team win. And that to me has just as much to do with downtown Chinatown not being revitalized the way it needs to after fucking pandemic. If the Wizards were contending, if the Caps were contending, if they were both fucking contending, those crowds would be sellout and there'd be people doing shit before and after the games. And that's the other part of it that needs to, you're right, needs to get discussed. If you look at the first couple of years of FedEx Field, back when it was Jack Kent Cooke Stadium, that stadium was fucking rocking. It was the biggest stadium in terms of capacity in the NFL, and you felt it. You fucking felt it. We traveled, and each year when the team got shittier and shittier, and there was less hope and less desire to fucking deal with it, it became a fucking travesty to feel. To feel as though you got to go out there. But if we were in the fucking playoffs, we would be complaining a whole hell of a lot less.
Certainly. I mean, you said it perfectly. You said it perfectly. You are willing to do more when the teams win. And if the teams were winning, I'm not even sure there's a discussion about moving. Because like you said, there would be those sellouts. It's already a great location. And so then all of a sudden, you're just talking about how do we win even more? How do we continue? Because I think you and I have talked about this. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the podcast when it's just been you and me. But to me, this is, I know hockey's been great and I appreciate Ovechkin and always will. Legend. This is a basketball town, man. Like when the Wizards are good, there are so many basketball fans here. It's the District of Columbia. There are so many fans here. And there is so much love for the Wizards that is just, it doesn't have a place because the team has been so mediocre and so bad for so long. And it eventually develops into apathy. And it's tough to see. It is tough to see. So
yeah, I think the basketball nature of Washington is kind of rooted in the core of like its natives. Like we love basketball because look, when you're growing up in DC, you're going to DCPS. You might have a football field, you might have a soccer field.
You definitely got a court,
right? And we all knew dudes to play. My family ran the Urban Coalition Summer League in DC for like 40, 50 fucking years. I got to watch like all the stars come through. We know about Goodman League. Like this is what this town's about. You go to any fucking pickup court in PG County over Southeast, you're getting some fucking talent in this bitch, right? The last time I saw that crop of Washingtonians be excited about the Wizards was fucking Gilbert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so true. Anyway, this was the show. This was District Divided, a DC sports podcast, more specifically a Washington Commanders podcast, although we did just talk about the Wizards. We talked about the Capitals. We've done that before. I am Amit. That is KDOT. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. And if you enjoyed it, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. Comment as you always do. And KDOT.
Share this shit. My eye is twitching like a son of a bitch. Get us to a level where I can stop stressing about life and stop eye twitching and shit. Might be dying over here, guys. And it's your fault for not sharing. It's your fault.
Unless you are, in which case we thoroughly appreciate that. But do it for KDOT, please. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.